Welcome to the Journal. Push finally came to shove in Washington this week as the battle over health care reform escalated from scattered sniper fire into all-out combat.
Socialized medicine produces rationing of care.
One of the plans that we've talked about is a public option.
We've been pushing health care reform by August. Why the rush?
$239 billion to the deficit by 2019.
We're talking about a nightmare for the American people.
It's not going to add to the deficit.
It will not add to the deficit.
It is insane.
If this all seems to be getting more and more confusing, well, join the club. It's hard to see what's happening through all the gun smoke. The Republicans have more than health care reform in their bomb sights. They want a loss for Obama so crushing it will bring the administration to its knees and restore Republican control of Congress after next year's elections. In the words of Republican Senator Jim DeMint, if we're able to stop Obama on this, it will be his Waterloo. It will break him. The Waterloo of DeMint's metaphor, of course, was the battle in 1815 that ended Napoleon Bonaparte's rule as Emperor of France, a humiliating defeat and a turning point in European history. Right-wingers like Glenn Beck see Obama as Napoleon, an emperor who must be stopped.
I mean, this guy is practically an imperial president now. When he starts to lose and people question him and push him back against the wall, he's not going to know how to react.
The Republican strategy is almost identical to the way they turned health care into Waterloo for Bill and Hillary Clinton in 1993.
Find more you like in the president's plan?
Yeah.
And?
Well, it just doesn't have the choice we want. Look at this.
Back then, one of their chief propagandists, William Kristol, urged his party to block any health care plan for fear Democrats would be seen as, quote, the generous protector of middle-class interests. Now he's telling the GOP, go for the kill, throw the kitchen sink at it, drive a stake through its heart. We need to start over. So in lockstep are the Republicans that when strategist Alex Castellano issued a memo on the battle plan, Party Chairman Michael Steele echoed it word for word in a speech at Washington's National Press Club. Castellano, slow down, Mr. President. We can't afford to get health care wrong.
Slow down, Mr. President. We can't afford to get health care wrong.
Castellano, the old top-down Washington-centered system the Democrats propose will empower Washington to restrict the cures and treatments your doctor can prescribe for you.
The old top-down Washington-centered system the Democrats propose is designed to grow Washington's power to restrict the cures and treatments your doctor can prescribe for you.
Castellano, President Obama is experimenting with America too much, too soon, and too fast.
Your experiment proposes too much, too soon, too fast.
As the Republicans fired away, big business stepped up the attack too, their lobbying and advertising guns blazing. In certain key states where members of Congress remain on the fence, the airwaves are vibrating with television commercials aimed at shifting hearts and minds away from any change that might threaten profits.
What will happen to your family's health care if Washington runs it?
Now, Washington wants to bring Canadian-style health care to the U.S.
President Obama rejected the Republicans' Waterloo metaphor, but mounted a massive media counteroffensive of his own.
Another Republican senator that defeating health care reform is about breaking me. So let me be clear. This isn't about me. I have great health insurance, and so does every member of Congress. This debate is about the letters I read when I sit in the Oval Office every day and the stories I hear at town hall meetings. I'm the president, and I think this has to get done.
But the president's already stepped on booby traps of his own making and minefields laid by his own party, especially when the Congressional Budget Office reported that his reforms, instead of controlling costs, would send the national debt further into the stratosphere. Meanwhile, supporters who want to scrap the present system for fundamental change are staring glumly through the fog of war at a battlefield in total disarray. They fear that in the White House's desire to get a bill, any bill passed by Congress, it will have been so compromised, so bent to favor the big interest, that it will be less Waterloo than watered down, a steady diluting of what they'd hoped for or America needs. The big drug companies are already so pleased with what they've been promised that they brought back Harry and Louise, a make-believe TV couple who helped take down the Clinton health care plan.
Because every day, more and more people are finding they can't afford health care.
But this time, they're in favor of reform.
Coverage people can afford, coverage they can get.
Could it be that Harry and Louise are happier because this time they're in on the deal? What to make of all this? I've asked two expert analysts of healthcare to help me out. Trudy Lieberman covers healthcare reform for the Columbia Journalism Review and directs the Health and Medicine Reporting Program at the City University of New York's Graduate School of Journalism. MARCIA Angell, a physician herself, is senior lecturer in the Department of Social Medicine at Harvard University Medical School. She was the first woman editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine. She, too, has written widely and often about healthcare reform. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Trudy Lieberman, is it Waterloo or no Waterloo? Is that the question?
Waterloo for whom? Whether it's a Waterloo for the American people who aren't going to or may not get a resolution of this, and they certainly do need some help along the way with health care, or is it a political question for the president?
Well, the Republicans have made it this week clearly and sharply a political challenge to him.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. A lot of people have said this is a do-or-die issue for the president. That rhetoric certainly hadn't been coming up really before the last several weeks.
And I would say on the politics first that it is something of a Waterloo in the sense that if he doesn't get it right, he's going to be president for 3 more years, and the chickens will come home to roost.
How so?
Well, the failure can show up before he's out the door, and then he's got a real problem. He was right in his press conference when he talked about cost as a central issue. And he said, if we don't control costs, not only will the health system continue to disintegrate, but it'll drag the whole economy down with it. What he has essentially advocated is throwing more money into the current system. He's treating the symptom, and he's not treating the underlying cause of our problem. Our problem is that we spend 2.5 times as much per person on health care as other advanced countries, the average of other advanced countries, and we don't get our money's worth. So now he says, okay, this is a terribly inefficient, wasteful system. Let's throw some money into it.
Into the same system?
Into the same system. That's his problem. The other problem in the press conference was that he was trying to mobilize public support for a bill, and we don't know what that bill is.
I want to get to that point because he's been vague right from the very beginning on this point. We have not known exactly what the Obama health plan has been, even though the headline writers and the press has been talking about his health care overhaul for months. And so I like to step back and say, well, what exactly is he talking about? What exactly does he mean? And he has not been clear on that.
You've said he's been AWOL, A-W-O-L,
yes,
on details.
He has been out to lunch on this. And I think that's a deliberate strategy on the part of the White House.
Yes.
What they had done is learn from what they call the Clinton mistakes in 93, 94. And what happened then is that Hillary came out with this big 1,000-page bill, although we have now another 1,000-page bill, and let the special interest groups sort of pick it apart. This time they decided not to do that, that they would be deliberately vague about this and stay as vague as they could be until push came to shove. And so basically, it's my belief that this whole discussion about health care reform is flying over the heads of the American people. They know about reform, but they don't know. They know the words reform, but they don't know what they mean at all.
I had the same reaction you did to that press conference. And I woke up a Thursday morning after the press conference to the headline in the New York Times that read, "President seeks public support on health care." And in the margin of the Times, I said, does the public know what is in this health care? Nobody knows.
He doesn't know. Nobody knows.
Well, somebody has to know. They keep talking about it.
Well, he says, let Congress do it. In their wisdom, they'll come out with something, and I will give you a few feel-good principles, and then we'll wait and see what happens, because he doesn't want his fingerprints on it if it fails.
I feel the American people need to know what is in that bill. And what's in the bill is an individual mandate that is going to require all Americans, with a few exceptions, to carry health insurance. And that means if you do not get insurance from Medicare or Medicaid or your employer, you're going to have to go out and buy health insurance. And that is a lot of money for most people, because most of them would buy it now if they could afford it. About 85% of the uninsured require subsidies because they can't afford it. And I think this is going to come up as a big surprise to people to realize they're going to have to buy insurance from private insurance companies or face a tax penalty.
Well, that goes to the cause of the problem. We are the only advanced country in the world that has chosen to leave health care to the tender mercies of a panoply of for-profit businesses whose purpose is to maximize income and not to provide health. And that's exactly what they do.
The president, as you were saying a moment ago, is saying to everybody who's not covered, we're going to mandate that you exercise that right. We're going to mandate that you buy
we're going to
some
deliver
form.
the private insurance companies a captive market. That's right.
Well,
and they
say
love
that. Say that again.
They love that.
His policy does what?
It delivers to the private insurance industry a captive market.
By the mandate. That says,
mandate.
Marshall Angell, you've got to...
For whatever price they want to charge.
Right.
Well,
and so this will increase costs. And let me tell you what he's running into, and he'd like to be able to pull a rabbit out of the hat, but he won't be able to. If you leave this profit-oriented system in place, you can't both control costs and increase coverage. You inevitably, if you try to increase coverage, increase costs. The only answer, and he said it at the beginning of his press conference, is a single-payer system. In his first sentence, he said that is the only way to cover everyone.
But he's also said if we were starting the system from scratch, we could have single-payer, but we're not starting this system from scratch.
You know, you don't pour more money into a failing system. You convert.
I saw back in the spring the chief lobbyist for the big pharma industry, Billy Tozan, used to be a member of Congress. He was on CNBC, and he was in support of this bill, whatever this bill is, because it would broaden the industry's customer base by providing subsidies for people to buy more coverage from the private insurance.
At whatever price they want to charge.
It will be a bonanza for the health insurance industry and a bonanza for the pharmaceutical industry and for the doctors too, because the doctors are going to get more paying patients because people will now have this ticket, this insurance card that they can whip out when they need medical services.
So does this explain why Harry and Louise, who were around 15 years ago to help defeat Bill Clinton's health plan, Bill and Hillary Clinton's health plan, are back now in support, seemingly to be in support? Let me show you the commercial that's been running now. Watch closely.
Well, it looks like we may finally get health care reform.
It's about time. Because every day, more and more people are finding they can't afford health care.
Or they're losing coverage.
We need good coverage people can afford. Coverage they can get.
Even if they have a pre-existing condition.
And coverage they can keep if they change jobs.
Or lose their jobs. Sounds simple enough.
A little more cooperation, a little less politics, and we can get the job done this time.
Wouldn't it make you think that Big Pharma is supporting health care reform?
That's exactly, what they're supposed to be.
But on their terms, right?
On their terms, exactly.
This is what those ads are supposed to do. They're supposed to make the ordinary person believe that they're good guys this time around.
And on their terms means what for them?
Well, they can charge whatever they want, that there will be no bargaining, that Medicare and Part D will not bargain for lower prices. There will be no formularies. You know, even this thing about the pharmaceutical industry is going to kick in $80 billion over 10 years that the president mentioned in the press conference.
Only if healthcare passes.
First, this is $8 billion a year for the pharmaceutical industry. This is chump change. And second, it's only for brand name drugs. So in a sense, it's a subsidy for the most expensive drugs.
Do you believe the healthcare industry when it tells President Obama that we will voluntarily cut costs?
No. I mean, these are investor-owned businesses. If they behave like charities, heads would roll in the executive suites. They are there to maximize profits, and that's exactly what they do.
What's happened now is that the industries have gotten pretty much they want out of the bills that are going forward. And so what's happening is that they need to build public support. They need to make everybody in the public realize that they actually are wearing white hats in this one. But behind the scenes, they are lobbying ferociously against the public plan, against cuts in doctors' fees, against all kinds of things that they don't want. And for that, they're using a different sort of lobbying tactic. All of these are communications or lobbying strategies that they know how to do, and they are very excellent at doing them.
It's clear that they can turn it to their advantage,
right.
That nobody is really trying to break their, except the single-payer people, their death grip on the system. Here you have hundreds of for-profit insurance companies that maximize their income by denying care to the people who need it most. And that's the insurance system. That's how we pay for health care. But you also have to look at how we deliver health care. And we deliver that primarily or largely in for-profit facilities, businesses, hospitals, whose interest is in delivering only profitable care. So we have a system that through and through, and both the payment system and the delivery system is oriented toward profits. Neither the Senate nor the House is doing anything to change that.
But the President says there will be a public option in my bill that will compete with the private insurance to bring the cost down.
That's what he said. That's what he says. Again, we get back to the detail question and the particulars, which are so absent in this whole discussion. We don't know what a public plan will look like, and even if there's going to be a public plan, the insurers don't want it. It's not clear that the doctors want it, and the pharmaceutical companies don't want it. So my question is, are they working behind the scenes to make sure this doesn't happen? My answer is they probably are.
A lot is said about how the public wants to cling to what it has. What I'm finding is something that confirms the polls that have been done, showing that something like 2/3 of the public would favor a Canadian-style or a Medicare for all style single-payer system. The same is true of physicians now. About 60% of physicians favor Medicare for all or a single-payer system. So what is against it? The pharmaceutical and the insurance industries are the biggest lobbies in Washington. They spend millions and millions on influential members of Congress, and the amount that they are spending now to the chairman of the relevant health committees has increased enormously in the past few months.
Just the other day, the Chamber of Commerce began running an advertising campaign, and the Chamber says a new government-run plan will undermine employer-sponsored coverage and eventually lead to a government takeover of the health care system.
Medicare.
All right. That will
Scary.
That will limit patients' choices. I mean, isn't that proving to be a convincing argument with the public? That seems to be...
It's phony, of course.
Phony?
It's phony in the sense that Medicare is a single-payer system embedded within our larger market-based system. You have totally free choice of physician in Medicare. You don't in most employer-sponsored private plans. Canada, totally free choice of doctors. So this is simply not true.
Let me show you both a couple of clips from the House floor recently and get your comments on them. These are two congressmen who are opposed to any kind of national insurance or general coverage. Look at this.
They're going to save money by rationing care, getting you in a long line. Places like Canada, United Kingdom, and Europe, people die when they're in line.
1 in 5 people have to die because they went to socialized medicine. Now, I've got 3 daughters and a wife. I would hate to think that among 5 women, one of them is going to die because we go to socialized care and we have to have these long lists to get a mammogram, once you find it, to get treatment. It is insane.
We've heard these arguments since 1948. And what amazes me, they opposed the national health system under President Truman. Yeah. So that notion, that conventional wisdom in America is pretty ingrained and pretty deep. What they fail to say here is that people are waiting in line in America. We ration care in America. And we do it by income. People who don't have money and the ticket to health care do not get the care. So that rationing has taken place. But even people who do have insurance are waiting months for mammograms. In Florida, there's been a horrible shortage of places where women can go and get mammograms. And most people have to wait a long time to get an appointment with a doctor for an annual physical.
If we continue to spend what we do right now on health care, but had a system that distributed it according to medical need, there would be no rationing. And if we held it at that cost, there would never be any rationing. So it's simply not right. The problem is not the money, it's the system. There is more than enough in the system already. And that's why I don't think it's a good idea to pour more money into a dysfunctional system. Obama said in his press conference, the worst thing we can do is nothing. The most costly thing we can do is nothing. Now, I disagree with that. You can throw more money into this system and make it even more costly. But in a sense, we are at a point now where we have to act and we have to confront the private insurance industry directly.
Do you see any evidence that the president wants to do that?
No,
is willing to do that?
What I would say this time around, and now I'm going to be very pessimistic, Bill. This time around, I don't think it's going to happen because of the power of the pharmaceutical and insurance lobbies. I don't think it's going to happen. But I would rather see Obama go down fighting for something coherent and practical that the public could mobilize behind than go down fighting for this amorphous plan that tries to keep the private insurance industry in place.
It seems to me like they're more finessing than fighting.
Well, he will have to fight, but I think he'll go down.
They've been finessing since the very beginning. They've been finessing since the campaign. During the campaign, he was not even willing to be pinned down. He had a whole list of things that he would like to do, but so did Hillary Clinton and John McCain. And in some ways, they really weren't all that far apart, except on the issue of long-term care. That is another time bomb that is awaiting America, and nobody has talked about it. But aside from that, I see an administration that is trying to keep this playbook going as long as possible and to commit as little as possible until the 11th hour. And by then, it's going to be too late for the American people to know what's going to await them. And as a journalist whose job it is to explain to the average person on the street what all of this means to them, that's not happening. And as a journalist, that troubles me. The press has not dealt with the issue of how this is going to affect the auto mechanic on Main Street or the babysitter.
But we don't know what this is.
But we know the outlines enough. We know about the individual mandate. We sort of know that if there's a public plan, it might be this tiering arrangement that has a bronze, silver, and gold kind of arrangement, and you can pay more if you have more, which still perpetuates the problem that we have. We know enough so that journalists can write the story.
Do I hear you both saying, in effect, what Bill Kristol, the Republican strategist, said this week? Kill this bill, kill this proposal that Obama is pressing, and start over?
Well, not exactly.
Not exactly.
No, you're hesitating.
But I'm hesitating because I don't think he's grasped the nettle. And I don't think that even the best of the proposals that he is considering are going to be effective. And I worry about even the public option because...
Now, you've been skeptical of the public option.
Yes, I'm skeptical of that because the power of the insurance industry is so great that I believe that they would use their clout in Congress to hobble the public option in some way and have it become a dumping ground for the sickest patients and then cream off the profitable ones for themselves. And then what people would decide is that the public option was no good, that the public couldn't do anything, the government couldn't do anything right. And that would be the wrong lesson to draw.
That's what some people fear will happen to Medicare, that it will be privatized in some way to deal with its cost problems. Yeah. And only the sickest people will remain in the Medicare pool of people who get benefits. But I want to go back to Kristol's argument and what he, we sort of know what the conservative plan might look like. It's basically a market-based approach that would rely on private insurance, but also on what is a relatively new kind of insurance arrangement called consumer-driven health care. And by that, we mean policies that have very high deductibles. I've seen some being sold by some of the Blue Cross plans as being $20,000 deductibles and $40,000 if you go out of network. So is that really insurance? You know, people are going to be buying these because they will be affordable, because the higher the deductible, the cheaper the policy. And so then what's going to happen to them when a serious illness strikes and they have to cough up the money? They're not going to have it. So this whole issue of underinsurance, which is kind of tied in with the conservative approach, hasn't even been discussed.
Given what you've said, why the rush? Why not slow this down and give this very big issue more due deliberation?
It's really a political calculation, and I think that they believe that they have to act quickly because it might not happen, because the sooner you have the special interests going back home during the August recess and holding town hall meetings and talking to people in coffee shops, they're going to find that maybe this isn't something that people really want or have doubts about.
Well, I think we are in a hurry. I think that President Obama's worried that what happened with the Clinton plan can happen with him. And I do have a feeling of deja vu all over again, that this is like 1993, that the opposition is having a chance to mobilize, to march out these Canadians who say they had brain tumors and had to die, or these ads that say 20% of Europeans drop dead. Right. And I think he does. He is right to worry about that, and he is right to want to do it in a hurry. The problem is he's not doing the right thing.
But because?
Well, the plan is not, for all the reasons we've said. It leaves the bad guys in place. And it tries to kind of make concessions. And what the Clintons found out is they too wanted to keep the private insurance industry at the table and maybe regulate them a little. And what the private insurance industry decided was, why should we take half a loaf when we can have the whole thing? And that's what I'm seeing happening now.
We are having the same debate almost that we had in 93, 94. That's something I've written about for the Columbia Journalism Review. It's actually the same debate we've had decades before. And it's the unwillingness to look at what we could learn from other systems, single payer, multiple payers as they have in Germany and Japan, or even in the Netherlands where there are private payers. What's really happening there? So I think there's an unwillingness on the part of politicians, on the part of advocacy groups, some advocacy groups, to really educate Americans on what the possibilities are. And we at CJR have been saying we really have not had a vibrant discussion about other possibilities.
I think we have to start all over on this. I really do. I think we have to go for a single-payer system. You could institute that gradually. You could do it state by state. You could do it decade by decade. You could improve Medicare, that is, make it nonprofit, but extend it down to age 55, then age 45, then age 35. It would give the private insurance industry a chance to go into hurricanes or earthquakes or something to get out of the health business. It could be done gradually. I think that has to be done, and it's the only thing that can be done.
The story goes on, and we'll continue to talk about it in the months to come, all right?
All right.
Marcia Angell, Trudy Lieberman, thank you for being with me on The Journal.
My pleasure.
Thank you.